The orbital scrapyard above Draxel 4 was a graveyard of civilizations. Shattered hulls, forgotten vessels, and dismantled relics floated endlessly, waiting to be harvested for parts. Deep within its labyrinthine corridors, a single containment cell pulsed faintly with life. Inside that cell was Serenia, the last of the Kari. Her people had once ruled star systems with wisdom and grace, weaving light itself into architecture that defied gravity. Now, she was nothing but a trophy, kept alive by the syndicate scavengers who had purchased her from raiders. They whispered she was the final one, and that made her valuable. Serenia's violet eyes glowed dimly as she pressed her palms against the transparent energy field. Her once radiant form, tall and graceful with iridescent markings along her skin, had grown thin and weary. She knew what was coming. The Syndicate Council had voted. She would be terminated before anyone could ransom her. A relic was dangerous if it inspired rebellion. Her thoughts drifted to her ancestors, to the ruined temples of Kar, to the silence of extinction. She braced herself for the end. But on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Elias Varon received the intercepted message. Lot 745 scheduled for disposal. Kari specimen. Final of her lineage. The transmission was brief, encoded in syndicate chatter. Elias sat in the darkened cockpit of his gunmetal gray starfighter, the Resolute, and stared at the words. He had fought the syndicate before. He had seen what they did. Enslaving, silencing, erasing cultures they deemed inconvenient. The Kari, he remembered, had once saved human colonists with their healing arts centuries ago. Humanity owed them a debt. And Elias was not a man who ignored debts. He set his course for Draxel 4. Middle. The scrapyard was a fortress disguised as junk. As the Resolute approached, Elias activated stealth plating, drifting between derelict freighters and asteroid husks. Inside his chest, his heartbeat was steady but fierce. "This is madness," his AI companion, Nyx, said in its cool digital voice. "One man against an entire syndicate garrison." "One man's enough," Elias muttered, locking in the approach vector. He breached the outer hull of the station using magnetic clamps and a cutting torch. The metal peeled away like old bark, exposing a forgotten maintenance shaft. With rifle slung across his back and a plasma blade at his hip, he slipped inside. The halls reeked of oil, rust, and the stale breath of slavers. Syndicate guards, insectoid and reptilian, clattered their claws against the deck as they patrolled. Elias moved like a shadow, disabling two with precise strikes of his blade, silencing their chittering gasps. Deeper he went, guided by Nyx's whispers through his earpiece. At last, he reached the containment chamber. And there she was, Serenia. For a moment he froze. She was unlike anything he had seen. Her presence seemed to bend the dim light around her, her markings glowing faintly like starlight through water. Though frail, she held herself upright, proud even in captivity. Their eyes met. She saw not just a human, but a warrior carrying the weight of intent in his stance. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice musical yet hoarse. "Elias Varon," he said, kneeling to the console. "I came for you." Her breath caught. "Why?" "Because you're the last of your kind. And no one, no syndicate, no empire, gets to decide you don't deserve to live." The words stirred something inside her, something long dormant. Before he could disable the barrier, alarms shrieked. Syndicate overseers had noticed the breach. Heavy doors slammed down. Dozens of armed guards converged. "Captain," Nyx warned, "they're sealing off your escape route." "Figures," Elias growled, drawing his plasma rifle. Guess we'll make our own. The firefight exploded. Plasma bolts screamed through the chamber. Elias ducked, rolled, returned fire, dropping 3 guards with precision shots. His blade crackled as he cut down another that lunged too close. Serenia, trapped within her cell, pressed her hand against the barrier, her markings glowing brighter. Though weakened, she summoned a fragment of her ancestral power. Light shimmered at her fingertips, and with a cry, she forced it outward. The energy field flickered, destabilized, then shattered. She collapsed to her knees, but free at last. Elias sprinted to her side, catching her. "On your feet. We're leaving." "I have no strength," she murmured. "Then borrow mine." He hoisted her against his shoulder. With Serenia leaning on him, they fought through the labyrinth. Elias's rifle hissed dry, and he switched to his blade, cutting through Syndicate soldiers with feral determination. Serenia, though drained, used her flickering energy to shield them from lethal shots, the glow forming fragile barriers that cracked but held. Finally they reached the hangar bay. The Resolute waited, engines primed. But standing between them and the ship was the Syndicate commander, Vorik the Collector, a towering brute clad in scavenged armor, wielding a shock axe that sparked with electricity. "You dare steal Syndicate property," Vorik bellowed, mandibles snapping. "The last Kari is mine." Elias eased Serenia behind a crate. "Stay low." Then he stepped forward, blade igniting with a growl of energy. "She's not property. She's a person. And you'll never touch her again." The duel was brutal. Vorik's axe slammed with thunderous force, sparks flying as it clashed against Elias's blade. The human's arms strained, but his stance held. Sweat poured down his brow as he dodged, countered, struck. His training and sheer willpower the only things keeping him alive. A final strike shattered Elias's weapon in half, leaving him staggering. Vorik raised his axe for the killing blow. And then Serenia screamed. Light burst from her markings, a desperate surge of Kari energy. It lashed out like a wave of stars, slamming into Vorik and hurling him across the hangar. His armor scorched, his limbs twisted. He collapsed, unconscious. Serenia collapsed too, trembling and weak. Elias rushed to her, scooping her up. "Easy. I've got you." With a sprint, he carried her aboard the Resolute. The ship roared to life, blasting from the hangar just as Syndicate reinforcements stormed in. The scrapyard shrank behind them, swallowed by the dark sea of stars. Ending. 4 hours, Elias piloted the Resolute through shifting hyperspace currents, putting distance between them and the Syndicate. At last, when the stars steadied outside the viewport, he set the ship to autopilot and went to the medbay. Serenia lay on the cot, her glow faint but steady. Her breathing was shallow, but when Elias approached, her eyes opened. "You risked everything," she whispered. "Wouldn't be the first time," he said, managing a faint grin. "But this was worth it." Her gaze softened, something like tears shimmering. "You don't understand. The Kari believed that when the last of us fell, the universe would forget us. But you came. You remembered. You fought for me, though you owed me nothing." Elias sat beside her. "Humanity doesn't forget its friends. Your people saved ours once. Now it's my turn." Silence lingered, broken only by the hum of the ship. At last, Serenia reached out a trembling hand, placing it against his. "Then let me live. Not as a relic, but as someone who can walk among the stars again. Will you stand with me, Elias Varan?" He clasped her hand firmly. "Always."